Alright, tonight we're talking about fishing, Dot. Yeah, I know. Fishing sounds peaceful, right? Quiet lake, soft ripples on the water, maybe some crickets in the background. But sometimes, when you're out there in the dark, surrounded by nothing but water and trees, things start to feel different. These are 3 fishing stories that start off calm and end somewhere you really don't want it to be. Let's get into it. The first one comes from a guy named Kenny. Kenny and his older brother had this tradition. Every few weeks, especially during the warmer months, they'd head out to this lake that most people didn't bother with. It wasn't on any tourist list. No cabins, no docks, just trees hugging the shoreline and a narrow dirt path that led down to the water. Dot. They preferred going late at night, not because they were trying to be brave. They just hated crowds. During the day, the place would get noisy families, music, people splashing around. But at night, it was theirs. On this particular Friday, they got there just as the sun was sinking. The sky was turning that deep orange-purple color, the kind that makes everything look a little unreal. They set up like they always did. 2 folding chairs, a small cooler, tackle boxes laid out neatly. The air was cooler than usual, and the water looked darker than Kenny remembered. Dot at first. Everything felt normal. Dot. They cast their lines and sat back, talking about random stuff, work, girlfriends, weekend plans. Just normal brother conversation. Then Kenny noticed something. About maybe 30 or 40 yards out, the water shifted. Dot. Not a splash, not a fish jumping. Dot. It was more like something rising. He squinted, trying to see through the dim light. The surface of the lake bulged slightly, like something was pushing up from underneath. "Do you see that?" he asked his brother. His brother followed his gaze. They both went quiet. Slowly, something broke the surface. Dot. At first, it looked like a log, just a dark shape. But then it straightened. Dot. It wasn't a log. Dot. It was a head. A human head. Hair slicked down flat against a pale face. The person just floated there, upright, not swimming, not treading water. Dot. Just there. Kenny said the part that really messed with him was how long it must have been underwater before they saw it. They hadn't noticed anyone out there before. No splashing, no swimming, and the lake was freezing at night. Dot. The figure stayed still for several seconds. Then it tilted slightly, as if looking around. Neither brother said a word. The head dipped under again. Dot. No dramatic splash, just a slow, silent descent. They both leaned forward, staring at the spot where it had disappeared. 1 minute passed, then 2. Dot. By the time it reached nearly 3 minutes, Kenny felt this knot forming in his stomach. No one could hold their breath that long in water that cold. Not without training, not without struggle. And there had been no struggle. Dot. Then the surface broke again, but this time much closer, maybe 15 yards away. And now they could see more. Dot. It was a woman. She was wearing a dark green swimsuit, the color almost blending with the lake. Her skin looked pale under the fading light. Her hair hung wet and heavy around her shoulders. She wasn't shivering. She wasn't gasping for air. She was smiling, not a wide grin, just a soft, almost playful smile. She swayed slightly in the water, as if the lake itself was gently rocking her. "Evening," she called out. Her voice carried easily across the water. Kenny and his brother exchanged a look. Neither of them recognized her. "You guys fishing?" she asked. Dot. Her tone was light, casual. Kenny managed to nod, though he doubted she could see clearly in the dim light. "You should come in," she said. "It's not that cold." That was a lie. They dipped their hands in earlier. It was freezing. His brother cleared his throat. "We're good." The woman's smile didn't fade, but something about it changed. It felt tighter. "Come on," she said again. "It's nice out here." She leaned back slightly, floating with unnatural ease. Kenny shook his head. We're about to head out, actually. For a split second, her expression froze. Then it shifted. The softness drained away. Her eyes seemed darker somehow. You're leaving? She asked. There was something in her voice now. Something sharp. Yeah, his brother said quickly, already standing up. We've got an early morning. The woman's face twisted. What came next? Kenny said. Still makes his skin crawl. She opened her mouth and let out a scream. But it wasn't just a scream. It sounded like someone being attacked. Like pure, raw agony. High-pitched, desperate, violent. It echoed across the lake, bouncing off the trees. Kenny's heart slammed in his chest. His brother grabbed the gear without even packing it properly. They didn't speak. They just moved. The screaming didn't stop. It followed them as they backed away from the shoreline. When Kenny risked one last glance over his shoulder, she was still there in the water, staring at them. But she wasn't smiling anymore. They ran to the car. Hands shaking, they threw everything into the trunk and peeled out of the dirt lot. The screaming finally faded as they got farther down the road. They called the police. Once they had service, officers checked the lake that night. No sign of a swimmer. No footprints. No abandoned clothes. Nothing. Over the next few weeks, Kenny and his brother went back this time during the day. And once with their dad, they never saw her again. But neither of them ever went back after dark. The second story. Comey's from J. This one takes place deep in the marshes of Louisiana. Jay and his friend Angel had planned a weekend fishing trip. They launched their kayaks early in the morning, pushing off into water that looked more like thick tea than anything else. If you've ever seen photos of the Louisiana marshlands, you know the vibe: endless flat water, tall grasses, cypress trees draped in Spanish moss. Beautiful, but isolated. They paddled out to a quiet spot where the water was calm and shallow. It was colder than they expected. A strange chill in the air. They tied their kayaks together so they wouldn't drift apart and started casting. A couple of hours passed without much happening. Just the occasional small catch. Then Angel's phone buzzed. He shifted in his kayak to grab it from his lap, and that's when it slipped. They both watched it drop into the murky water with a small plop. Angel swore under his breath. The water there was maybe waist deep. Muddy, yes. Cold, definitely. But not deep enough to be dangerous. Or so they thought. I can get it, Angel said. Jay hesitated. You sure? Yeah, it's right there. Angel slid out of the kayak and into the marsh. He immediately winced. Man, that's freezing. He started feeling around with his feet, trying to locate the phone in the mud. Jay stayed in the kayak, watching. Angel shuffled slowly, eyes focused downward. Then, without warning, Angel jerked forward. It wasn't like he slipped. It looked like something pulled him hard. He let out a shout as his upper body pitched forward. And in a split second, he was completely underwater. Jay froze. There was no splash fight. No flailing arms. Angel just vanished. The water churned slightly where he'd gone under. Jay felt this surge of panic. He was about to jump in when Angel exploded back up to the surface. He was covered in thick black mud, eyes wide, gasping, "Get out!" Angel screamed. "Get out of here!" He scrambled back toward the kayak, stumbling. Jay grabbed him, pulling him in. What happened? Jay asked. Angel was shaking uncontrollably. Something grabbed me, he said. What do you mean? It grabbed my ankle. And it pulled. Jay felt a chill run down his spine. A gator? He asked. Angel shook his head immediately. No, it wasn't teeth. It wasn't a bite. Then what? Angel struggled to explain. It wasn't a hand. It wasn't. I don't know what it was, but it wrapped around my ankle, tight, and it was strong. Stronger than anything. He said it tried to drag him away from where they were standing. Not down into the mud, but sideways, toward deeper water. If he hadn't twisted and kicked with everything he had, he wasn't sure he would have come back up. They didn't debate it. They untied the kayaks and paddled back as fast as they could. Angel kept looking over his shoulder the entire way. Nothing followed them, but neither of them ever fished that section of marsh again. The last story comes from someone who goes by. He and 3 of his friends decided to check out a reservoir one summer afternoon. Technically, it was off limits. There was a tall fence around most of it with clear "no trespassing" signs posted every few yards, but they found a gap, a section where the fence had been bent back, just enough for someone to squeeze through. Teenage logic kicked in. They crawled through and hiked down to a small sandy stretch along the water they jokingly called the beach. It felt private, hidden, like they discovered something secret. They set up their stuff coolers, towels, a portable speaker. One of them even brought a fishing rod. That's when they noticed the canoe. It was pulled halfway onto the sand a little farther down. At first, they assumed someone else had snuck in too, but as they walked closer, something felt off. Inside the canoe was a fishing rod. Not just sitting there. It was propped up, line cast into the water. The tackle box beside it was open. There was a half-eaten sandwich wrapped in foil and a phone lying face up in the vise. Canoe. Its flashlight was on, even though it was the middle of the day. Said the sight of that light sent a strange wave of unease through him. It looked abandoned. But fresh, like whoever had been there had just stepped away for a second. They called out, "Hello?" No answer. That's when one of his friends pointed. Across the reservoir, maybe 50 yards out, stood a person, knee-deep in the water. Just standing there, facing them. Too far away to see clearly, but clearly watching. "Hey!" Emma shouted. The figure didn't respond, didn't wave, didn't move. Respond, didn't wave, didn't move. Just stood there. A few seconds passed. Then the person started yelling. It was angry, hostile. "Get out of here." The voice carried faintly across the water. The group froze. "We're just hanging out." One of them shouted back, "Leave." The stranger screamed again. The tone wasn't just irritated. It was aggressive, unhinged. M.A. said the way the person moved next didn't sit right with him. The stranger dropped whatever they were holding, then began moving toward deeper water. At first walking. Then swimming directly toward them. Fast. There was no more discussion. They grabbed their stuff as quickly as they could, not even bothering to pack everything properly. The splashing behind them grew louder. They sprinted toward the fence, scrambling through the gap, tearing their shirts on the metal. By the time they reached their car, they didn't look back. They sped off, hearts pounding. As they drove away, one question stuck with them. If that person had been across the reservoir the whole time, then whose canoe was that? And where was the person who had left their sandwich half-eaten, their rod still cast, their phone light still shining? Sometimes the water keeps its secrets, and sometimes it's better not to go looking for answers. So next time you're out by a lake, or a marsh, or a quiet reservoir that feels a little too empty, pay attention, because you never really know who or what might already be out there with you.